Well, hello. My name's Josh, and today I thought I'd do a video on Shed repos. I wanted to share a little bit of what I've learned, especially I kind of looked at this of what do I wish I would have known when I started out. And so I wanted to make this video for people that are considering or actually getting into this industry, or if you're been doing repos, you might still be able to learn something. I know there's people out there who's done this longer and done more than I did. So I would tell myself, well, they're the ones that could make a video to teach others because they know all that. Well, the reality is maybe they don't want to, and I actually like teaching. So here I am doing it. Got my coffee. It's in the morning, so I'm trying to wake up. You know, when you do coffee, my wife hates it when I do the slurring thing like that. You know. too. Ah. Speaking of coffee, I'm very picky about my coffee. It's got to taste fresh and good. And I noticed that whenever I buy it at the store, it just tasted old and stale. And I like the beans, so I can grind them, sort of fresh ground beans in the morning. That's the best coffee. So I finally found what I think is the best coffee. That is blackout coffee. I started buying theirs. I order it online. The whole beans it comes in. I grind it up in the morning, and it tastes fresh. It's like it's fresh off of their dryer or whatever. I don't even know how to make coffee, but it tastes fresh, and I really like it. And that's why I decided to go ahead and sponsor their coffee. I won't do that unless I try the product and I like it myself. And I can tell you, blackout coffee is good coffee. So I have a coupon code. I will put a link in the description, and I will also put it at the end of the video. I'll put a link on the screen so you can click on that if you want to. And then if you use my coupon code Josh20, Josh20. So you put the code Josh20 when you check out to get 20% off your order. And the best way, I mean, the way I do it is I have a subscription. So I think I have it set at 3 bags for every 4 weeks, whatever amount you need to use. And so you set it up like that, so it always comes every 4 weeks. I would get new bags. So check out the link in the description and get yourself some good coffee because you want to go out there and haul a bunch of shits. You're going to need some good coffee in order to get through the day, if you know what I mean. Okay, let's move on. I got notes here, a list that I'm going to kind of try to go through. These are just things that I thought people might have questions about. So first, I want to make sure how rent to own works with my first line. Make sure we understand how it works. I could do a whole video on this, but I'm going to try to keep it short so I can go through more of these. First of all, it's rent to own. Okay, so make sure we understand that part. So a customer that wants to buy a shed will go to a shed lot. Usually, they're kind of like a car dealer lot. And if they want to pay cash, they just pay for it, cash check, whatever, and it's theirs. If they want to put it on payments, they don't go to the bank and get a loan on that building, that shed. I'll say building because it sounds like I say something else. So instead, they put it on payments. Now, typically, not always, but a lot of times, the builder has a rent to own company they work with. So these are companies that they're not banks, they're just rent to own companies. That's what they do though, is they actually buy that shed. They have a deal with the builder where they buy that shed and rent it out to their customers. So now they own the building. Somebody else is renting it on a month to month base with an agreement and a contract they signed with the company that they will pay a monthly fee on that until it's paid off. And we can get into this whole thing about that's taking advantage of people and whatever. My opinion is if you go and you don't do your due diligent research and you get yourself into something like that, that's your problem, not the rent-own company's problem. And they're not really taking advantage of people. They're making money, yes. They're charging interest, yes. And you're going to pay more for that building, yes. And I wouldn't do that because I don't like debt and I like to just pay cash for it and it's mine. But people do what they got to do. So I wanted to share that so that if you get into the repo, you know you have it in your head and you understand when you show up that building belongs to the rent-own company. Now, one other situation is when you drink coffee, you have to burp. So excuse me. Okay, I think it went away. It'll probably come back. um. Okay, so then that brings it to the next thing is what to say. So what I mean by that is when you show up to repo a building, what do you say? This is where I was an idiot. Let's just put it that way. But I didn't know, so I was an ignorant idiot, and that's okay if you don't know. But I would show up and I would say, I'm here to repo the shed because I guess it's on payments. I guess now I got something in my eye. I would say that I'm here to repo it because I guess the payments are not being made or something like that. Just the word I guess sounds very insecure. And that was me always in my life. And I'm growing in that area, but just being that insecurity stuff you deal with. So what I learned this from Sam Byler. People in the shed industry know him. He said the first thing you want to do is make clear to them that it is our shed. So I show up, I'm representing or working for the rent to own company. So I'll show up and say, I'm here to pick up our shed. So now you're being upfront, clear, have clear communication that this is our shed. Right? And if they say, well, your shed, that's how you're, don't get into arguments and stuff. Let's just, move on. Um, Again, I'm gonna go through this list, and then I might talk for an hour about stuff if you want to listen, just stuff. Just I can do that. You want to make sure they know it's our shit, not their shit, because that is the truth. Okay. And then the other thing I like to do is that I think is works is tell them you're there to get it, right? Or if they want to make a payment, I can leave it there. Now, the reason I want to put it that way is because if you think about, for an example, your truck breaks down and you take it to the mechanic shop and the mechanic shop says it's going to take 10 grand to fix it. And you're like, oh, crap, I wasn't expecting that. Like, wow. Oh, and you're like thinking things through and you're kind of freaking out like, oh my gosh. And then they say, well, actually, we could do this. We could do it for actually 4 grand if we just do it like this. Now, you're much more willing to happily pay 4 grand because your other option was a lot higher. That's human psychology, I guess. So give them the worst news first and then the good news that you can just make a payment. So they're more likely or happier to just make a payment because they realize that the other option is to lose their building. And you take it from there. Okay. Get them on the phone with the rent-to-own company. Yeah, there was something that I apologize to my boss if he sees this because I would do this sometimes. I'd go in, I'd look at the buildings like, yeah, there's no way I can get it. There was something, too much stuff in it or, a truck in front of it or whatever the reason is, or too muddy. And then I'd talk to the people and I tell them, look, you need to make a payment. Here's what's going on, blah, blah, blah. And I drive away. And yeah, sometimes you do show up and you realize you can't get it. Number one here, never, ever, never let them think that you can't get it. In fact, make sure that they think you can get it because they'll say things like, oh, it's too muddy, you can't get it anyway, too much stuff, and oh, I got a way. Oh, you're going to get it? Oh, I got a way. Oh, I got a machine. Oh, I got the, just make them think you're going to get it so that you have them sort of at your advantage, on however you want to say that. Because if they know you can't get it, they're going to play you. So you want to make them think you can get it. So, and the next thing then is, this was our policy. You can talk to your rent-to-own company, whatever they want. But the main thing was, if I can't get it, to try to get them to think I can, and then tell them, okay, you need to call a rent-to-own company. Now, here's what they're going to say. Here's what they're going to say. And if you repo, you've heard this many times. Oh, yeah, I'll call them tomorrow. Yeah, I was going to call them next week and make a payment. Yeah, I've been in and out of the hospital, these are things you heard. And maybe they're true. I don't know. It just amazed me where they're like, yeah, I was going to make a payment next week. And then they just kind of start walking away like, no, it ain't that simple. I'm here. And so I tell them, well, I'm here now. So you have to call them now while I'm here. And if I have to, I'll get my phone out and call them and put them on the phone. Either way, I want them to talk to the rent-to-own company so that we have some kind of communication going again. And maybe they can work something out. They got to get on the phone with the rent-to-own company to establish communication. Okay, next. Be confident, never show fear. So I talked earlier about my insecurity, but yes, be confident, act like you can get it. I've had times where I could see there's no way I can get it again because of mud, or if there's a vehicle in front of it. I'll have to discuss if whether or not you can move that vehicle, maybe. But I would even like they wouldn't come to the door, and sometimes you can just kind of tell if somebody's home. Like I've seen it where you see them peep out the window, and then you knock on the door, and they don't answer the door. What do you do then? You go and unload your meal. The little bucket that moves the buildings around, and you head in there. I mean, see if they bluff. Most of the time, they're gonna bluff. So you go as far as you can, hook on the building or whatever. Most of the time, if you unload that meal and start going towards the backyard, they'll come out because they know you're serious. So they'll come out. So now you can talk to them. And, if you can, again, get them on the phone with rent-to-own company, at least you're telling them you're serious. So those are things you can do to help you out. Okay. What about people living in it? Can you evict them? So this one, I didn't really talk about the contract. So when they buy this thing, oops, I said buy, rent. When they rent this thing, they sign a contract. And most of the time, from what I've seen, and every contract should have this on, that this is a storage shed to store stuff in it, not a house to live in. So they don't have a right to live in that. And this is the contract they signed to agree that you're not going to live in it. And anything that you put in there, if it's there and you don't make a payment, it breaks the contract. So now you no longer have the right to be storing your stuff in my building, the rent-to-own company building, because your contract is void because you're not making payment. So now we have the right to come get the building, and everything that's in it can go with it. So does that include somebody sleeping? Sure, because they're not supposed to be in there sleeping. So it's not like a house. So no, you don't have to evict people and all that stuff. So you can't take, this is my house. No, this was a shed. Now, one thing that I thought about is there's been a lot of people selling these tiny homes. This is a very popular thing, and little cabins and stuff. Now, I don't know if they're doing rent to own on these. Like these are specifically, they're finished out. They got a living room, a bedroom, a kitchen, bathroom. Like they're finished out, made to live in it. There's no doubt that you're gonna, say you go to court and but well, this was a storage. No, this is a house. It's clear. So I don't know if they're doing rent to own, but I hope if any rent to own companies ever see this, I hope you got your ducks in a row and realize that if it's a house that you're doing a rent to own on, make sure that you have your contract updated to whatever you need to do to make it legal to repo it. That's just something I thought about. If there's electric hooked up to it, couple of things. One of the things you can do is take a shovel or a hatchet. Some people carry a hatchet with them. I like a shovel with long fiberglass or wood handle on it, and you just take your shovel and you put it off, and then the sparks should fly and it should trip the breaker. Now, this is again something that comes up. I see the comments in my video on YouTube. Oh, you leave a wire exposed out there, and somebody get shocked on it. And let me just say this: you don't want that to happen. So, but I'm also not responsible for it because they were not supposed to hook electric up to it. That might come off a little bit wrong, Tim. I'm not responsible for it, but they're not supposed to have electric to it. That's most likely in the contract because that is something that it's just comes down to it. When they do rent to own, they're supposed to keep it where you can get it. There's nothing obstructing it, no fence around it, no vehicle in front of it. All this is in the contract. So when they do those things, then the way I see it, that gives me the right to remove it. So I think it'd be a good idea to maybe carry some those nuts or wire nuts or something that you could put on the wire to make sure it's covered just in case somebody would touch it, in case they turn it back on, or in case it doesn't flip the breaker. It's not a good idea to leave a hot wire just laying out in the open. That's a really bad idea. But still, they are not supposed to hook up electric to it, so I got to do what I got to do to get rid of it. So you can do that. Sometimes people will go and find a breaker, like if there's a breaker by a telephone pole or somewhere. It might flip the whole house off. I don't know. Not sure how this stuff all works, but sometimes you can let the burps out. You can flip a breaker like that to get it off. If it's big, I've seen where it was like the big wire, I think it's a 220 or something, then you can't really just cut that off. So there you're gonna have to figure out a way to flip a breaker or work with them or something, because that's a little bit different. But just a regular little electric wire, you just chop it off and move on, right? My understanding is you can take a wire cutter or like a tin snips, and if you cut the black wire and the white wire, as long as your snips doesn't touch both wires at the same time, it won't shock you. So that's up to you to try. You might be shocked of how easy it works. I don't know. You find out. Okay. What happens to the stuff inside? So that was something that, again, it's in the contract that you have the right to just take it. There's some people, I know one guy at a repos who thinks that you should not bring a building back to the lot with a bunch of trash in it. And then there's others who say you take it. You don't have time to take that out. The way I looked at it was, if there's a lot of stuff in that building and I'm in somebody's backyard or somewhere where I don't feel really safe. I mean, you don't really feel very safe doing repos. I was never really scared either. A few times I was very on the edge and watching my back all the time. But if it's going to take me 45 minutes to an hour to clean all that stuff out, that gives the homeowner, the owner, whoever, 45 minutes to an hour to come home with a gun and possibly do something he shouldn't do to me, or just cause problems. So the goal is in and out. So that's kind of how I looked at it. Is like that, like, I'm kind of just putting my life at a little bit more risk by spending all this time in the people's backyards. So I don't really want to do it. I could take it out to the road and throw it off by the road, but I don't really want to do that either. Um, this is something that could be communicated with the rent-to-own company as, hey, what do you prefer? Do you want me to take the stuff out or leave it in? And also if it's trash or not trash, because if it's a bunch of trash, then the rent-to-own company is going to have to hire somebody to get rid of that, or they'll sell it sometimes as is. The other thing is, if you do spend time cleaning it out, you better be getting paid for it. So, if you're just starting out, there's just something to consider. Make sure you have like an hourly rate. Like one guy I've talked to, he charges $100 an hour. I think it was an hour, yeah. Or even if it's like 30 minutes, he's gonna charge him $100 to clean it out, because that's your time that you're using to clean out that stuff. Another thing I always thought was, like, one time there was a motorcycle in it that I left in the building and put a strap over it so it doesn't fall over. Didn't have to do that, just wanted to do that. That was because I knew that the customer was a trucker, so he might be gone for a week or two. It's hard telling. And he was out close to the road. There was really no way to put the motorcycle behind something or under the roof, so it could get stolen, it could get wet. So I'm just gonna leave it in it. Other times I've pushed him out in the yard because he was in the backyard. It looked like the people were at home because their garage door was open, stuff like that, but nobody came to the door. So I would push him outside. But again, if you put it outside, it gets rained on, then it gets wet. And I'd rather just take it and then let them come get it. So that's, I would say that is something you should talk to your rent-to-own company and come up to an agreement of what's going to work between the two of you. Okay. Um, so now these are kind of more things that I wanted to go over, just sort of my opinions and things that I think about. So this one is, should I carry a gun? This is just something that I thought I would share. Um, this is where you got to know your state laws, because different states have different laws. I know that, for one example that I know of, was Colorado. I live in Ohio, but I know in Colorado, I heard, because my nephew lives there, you can have a permit to carry. So you can have a permit for concealed carry. It's also an open carry, so you can open carry. But you can concealed carry in the state, but in the city of Denver, you cannot. So they create their own rule. So these are just things that you need to know, because once you enter the city limits, you're no longer legal, but outside of the city limits, you are. In Ohio, Ohio is now a constitutional state. That happened in the last few years. So we can carry it without a permit. Now, like, I still have my permit. I had to get it renewed because it was expired for a few years. But if I want to go out of state, sometimes I need that permit because other states work with those states. One another thing that's cool about Ohio is you can come from any state with a permit and carry with that permit. Ohio, what's the word? I can't think of the word. They accept any state permit, put it that way. We also have to stand your ground law now. Okay, that is something that I've always heard about Florida, stand your ground law. And I finally took the time to read into it, figure out what it is. And well, they taught this when I got my permit actually. Is the Ohio State used to be the law was that you are supposed to run if you are threatened. So let's say you're at a restaurant and somebody comes in there with a pew pew and starts to bang bang. If you can run out the back door without getting hit, then you were supposed to do that by law. This is something I always wonder if people know, because this is not a, is that the right thing to do versus standing up and protecting the whole restaurant? No, that was not the right thing to do. But what's going to happen in court? That's the situation. So the good news is now we have stand your ground law that says you can stand your ground in that situation. But here's the situation that I always think about when it comes to doing repos. If I go on somebody else's property to repo a shed where I have the rights to be there based on the contract and everything, I'm still on their property. And I've talked to a lady there's a lady that does, they call it her shed bounty hunter. And what she does is these sheds that go missing because people move them. And so she'll go out and hunt them down and find them and then have somebody pick them up. And so I asked her about this stuff. And she's like, no, they gave you the right to be there when they signed the contract. But she's not a lawyer. So I'm still not sure how that would stand up because you're still on their property. Let me just also say this. The last thing I want to do is take somebody's life. The last thing I want to do is defend myself in any situation. I just don't want to do that. Don't ever want to do that. But I do believe in the right to bear arms, or what am I trying to say? I believe in defending myself and my family. Okay, I do believe in that. Because of YouTube, I'm also trying to watch my words. So this is something also that I think you should really think about. Ignorance is bliss, right? People perish because of lack of knowledge. Okay, that doesn't really make sense here. But the idea that, well, I'm just going to think that nobody's ever going to do that. I'm just going to believe that nobody's ever going to come after me with a pew-pew. Well, our belief has a lot of power. I know that, but our belief doesn't overpower somebody's will. So don't think that. And also, do I want to get into this? Okay, people that will believe, well, God's going to protect me. Yes, God can protect you. He can stop a bullet, but he can't overwrite somebody's free will to try to harm you. Shocking, but that's reality. So what I'm saying is, you shouldn't live in fear when you go out and doing this. You shouldn't be afraid. That's on my list that I got to cover more yet. But you still have to use wisdom. Realize you're dealing with human beings that have a free will to do what they want to do, and they might get mad and they might want to try to hurt you. So the way I did it is I would put it in my head to kind of pre-program my head of what do I do if that happens? If somebody comes out with a gun. Now, I've never had that happen, but I know people who have. Just recently, again, a guy that happened to, and he was in the shed, and the guy comes out with a pistol, and he's just like, hey, wait, hold on, there's what's going on. And then eventually the guy put in his back pants and start chasing him to beat him up. It was a big guy, and he ran out and jumped across the fence. He was inside the fence. But there's times like that where that's your best thing you can do is just, hey, let's just talk about it, like confront them and show no fear. Because people are like dogs, they can smell fear. But back to trying to stay on track is I would pre-program this in my head of what do you do? Number one, my meal, if I have it with me, is bulletproof, so I can jump behind that if they come out bullets flying. The next thing is get off of their property. Now, I might have to run to a neighbor's property, but I also don't really want to be on the neighbor's property, and this guy's coming after me with a gun, and the neighbor sees it, and they're like, who are they gonna think it's a good guy? The neighbor is the other stranger, right? The number one goal now is to get to the road. Once I get to the road, to my truck, in my truck, behind my truck, wherever I need to go on public road, and the person still comes to try to harm me, now I know I have legal grounds to defend myself. So these are just things that I know. I feel like there's some people that are like, yeah, I would defend myself, I'd take their life, boom, boom, I don't care. I hate that attitude. I'm sorry, you're an evil person with an evil attitude, and that life is not going to do well for you in the end. I'm just going to put that out there. There, I said it. That infuriates me with that. People with that attitude, I just can't stand. They just have no remorse and they have no mercy for other human beings. You don't know what people go through, and nobody deserves to be shot. Okay, Hitler. Okay, let's skip him. All right. But I'm just saying, let's have a little mercy towards our fellow human beings. That's what I'm saying. I get very passionate about that stuff. And on the other hand, there's people, oh, I wouldn't dare, defend myself. I'm just gonna pretend that stuff doesn't happen. That's the other extreme. Let's find the middle ground and be wise and have wisdom about it. Okay. Um, so the other one here I had was your attitude. Don't be a jerk. That's what I just kind of mentioned about. Be nice to people. Okay, that's how you change the world. That's how you create more nice people. I always think people have been hurt. Sometimes people say hurt people hurt people. People that have been hurt will hurt other people. I don't believe that. I'm not going to say that because that labels people. So I'm not going to assume that you hurt other people just because you're hurt. That's not fair to say that. I know people that have been horribly hurt, abused, raped by their fathers who are some of the nicest people in the world. They don't hurt other people. So it's not true. I don't say that. But oftentimes people that do hurt others or they have problems in their life, they have a wound. That's where I would look at it. They have a wound from somebody. Their father, or somebody abused them in some way. Now, they're not hurt. They're not going through life struggling because they've been abused by a dog or a cat or an alien or something. They don't have a wound from an animal. It's from a person. So I'm a person too. So if I'm nice to them, I can start healing that wound. Wound. Am I saying womb? I think I'm saying womb. Wound. And we'll see the comments rolling. I can start healing that and change their life so that they're now nicer to other people because their faith in humanity has been restored. Especially when the repo man shows up and is nice to them when they expect that's the last person to be nice to them. Also, I'm a Christian. I believe in Christ and God and Jesus. And I believe that's the way he treated people and that's the way he wants people to treat people. And partly for that reason, to heal humanity. The faith in people's faith in humanity has been drained. So we have the opportunity to restore that faith. And again, if I'm rude to somebody and jerk to somebody, I'm gonna hurt them. I'm gonna reopen that wound and cause them to probably want to go out and do that to other people. And I don't want to do that. My quote is from Abraham Lincoln, I want to leave this world a little better place having lived in it. So I'm going to choose to be nice to people because it benefits me in the end. In the repo situation, if I'm nice to them, they're more likely to work with me. I've had situations where I would have to almost go against the rent-down company and sort of make them look like the bad guy because that's what it took for me to work with them. I remember one specific one. I might share a couple stories. I went after this thing, and the building wasn't at the location that it was delivered to, and the people there were able to tell me where it went, so I went and I found it. And there was a lady and a couple guys there, and it's kind of this little hood, people living there. And I realized really quick that they're gonna work with me somewhat, but like for example, is the one guy goes and gets a no trespassing sign, puts it on a stake and stakes it in the ground. Okay, that's a clear message right there. That's a clear message that you better work with us or we're gonna call the cops and here's the no trespassing sign and we're gonna kick you off our property. I need to talk about that a little bit too about getting cops involved. So their issue is this lady wanted the rent-down company to pay her rent because they left the building on her property too long. And That's a situation where sometimes the guys just can't keep up at repoing them, but also they moved it. They had it moved. That's illegal for them to do. That's in the contract. You cannot move that shed to a different location. I'm talking like 10 miles down the road, but they had done that. So I should have enforced that a little bit more on her. Like, look, you did wrong here. But I gave her the time to call. She called like the local courthouse. Hey, can you go after them? Like she's trying to figure the stuff out. She talked to the rent-own company. Spent like an hour there, probably almost. And she told me, this is not fair. They blah blah. No, I'm not gonna. Oh yeah, it's fair because I'm not gonna make her mad because then she's not gonna work with me. So I just kind of like, yeah, yeah, okay, I see what your point is because that's how I can work with her. So eventually, after being that patient, they let me load it up and take it. Now I'm convinced to this day still that if I would have gotten like, nah, you gotta let me take it because here's the thing and blah blah blah. There's two guys there. They would have stopped me. They would have called the cops, and then the cops come out. Now let's go about that. I have, for some reason, surprisingly, never ever had the cops call on me. I know a lot of people who did. And I don't know. I don't want to be arrogant or whatever. I just can wonder sometimes if it was because I was always nice to them, and so they didn't feel like they needed them. Um, because I tried to work a way out. My first goal is to get them to pay, so I don't even have to get the building because I don't want to take their stuff. That's not my goal. I don't come in there with this goal like I'm gonna rip this building out. Again, if that's you, you're like, "Hey, I'm gonna show them. I'm gonna rip this building out. I'm gonna take theirs up." You're just a jerk. You shouldn't be in this industry. I'm sorry, but I don't care. I will think. I don't care. That's just. I have no tolerance from this jerk mentality of taking advantage of people. That's not what I stand for. Okay, I just don't. So I'm just gonna speak it. That shouldn't be your attitude. Your attitude should be, let's work something out. Can we make a payment and we're going? Now, there's a time that you have to stand up for yourself. I'm not talking about being a snowflake either. Okay, back to getting the cops involved. I've never had it happen, but I assume, first of all, let's say you're out in the country and a sheriff deputy shows up. If I put myself in that deputy's shoes, I'm going to assume that I would first protect the people in my county that I have sworn to serve and protect. Okay? So that's going to be probably on their mind, their first job. You know, hey, I don't know where you come from, but you were in the county that I am to protect and serve, dealing with someone who lives in my county, not my county, but my county. So I'm going to, first of all, sort of take their side. And the other thing is if they tell the cop to kick you off their property, that's what they're going to do because you don't have a court order. Now, if you have a court order, that's when usually you show up with the cops with a court order and they're there and they're going to make sure you can get the building. That's a different story. But a typical repo, just like car repos, it's supposed to be between two individual people, not law enforcement involved. But once they come out and you can show them the contract or whatever, they're still, most of the time, they're going to say, you don't have a court order. And if you're nice to them, they're probably going to be nice to you and you explain the situation. They're probably not going to just, hey, get out of here. And again, your attitude just means everything. If you're nice to them, they're probably going to be nice to you. I tell you, your attitude is so important. The other thing is leave your attitude. That means if you deal with a customer who's just playing a jerk, because they do exist, and you don't get the building and you're upset about it. That does happen. I've been there. But it is not fair to take that attitude to the next customer because you don't know the situation. You just don't know. I've showed up where what has happened is, especially in a trailer park, this happens. Somebody buys a lot with a trailer on it, and then they rent this shed, put it on there, and then they sell the house and they tell the buyer that the shed goes with it, and they probably get a little bit more for the house and everything because of that. And then I show up to repo it. Well, this new owner who did not know that the shed is on rent to own and didn't come with it, it's not fair to me to have a bad attitude towards that customer because They didn't know. My wife just walked in the office like, "Oh no, what did I walk into?" They didn't know the situation. So I'm gonna have to pause it and talk to my wife because I can't focus. Okay, I'm back. I had to have a meeting with my wife, so trying to think where I was. So yes, taking your attitude to the next customer. If for an example like that is they bought the house. It could be a house, it doesn't have to be a trailer house, but even a house that has happened where they don't know what shit come with it. So this is again where having a nice attitude about this versus I'm gonna go in there and not care and rip up their yard and take their trash and stuff, and then you find out that oh, they bought the house and the shed was they thought it came with it and they put their stuff in it, and now you took it and you have no mercy and you didn't care about them. So you're always just better off being nice. Another story that I thought be interesting to share, and this is a video that's on my channel. It's somewhere way back on my channel, but um, I showed up, building's not there. Went and talked to the neighbors. It's just like a field out there, no building, no house or anything. So I talked to the neighbor, and I guess he knew enough of what's been going on that he knew that they bought this shed and then they sold it. Oops, I said bought again. They rented it, and then they sold it. And so when the buyer came by, I guess I don't know if he knew who it was, but either way, he took the license plate number of this car. So he gave me the license plate number, and so he said he knew that was the buyer, I guess. So I drove away from there and I said, well, I did my job, building there and I got license plate number. And I'm thinking, there's no way to track somebody down like that. I mean, I'm not a cop where I can just type it in my computer. So I drive down the road and I look for it. Just that's something else you can do is and once you have the description of the building, you can drive down the road and see if maybe they took it to the neighbors or something. Finally, I said, you know what? I'm going to find this thing. I just got this feeling. And so I got on Google on my phone, and in a few minutes, I found the owner to that car. I'm still not sure. It's a God story because I'm not quite sure how else to explain it because I've never done that before. And I know I can find people. You can find people on Google, no question about it. But I didn't know you can do it with a license plate. It cost me like about $2, I think, on this one website. Got the owner, got the address, drive there. Sure enough, there it is. I go in and lady comes to the door, nice lady comes to the door, and I tell her the situation and I'm there for her, and she starts crying, kind of freaking out, like, oh my gosh, like, oh no. And I'm like, it's just a shed, like, what's going on? Come to find out, they had a 10-year-old girl that they adopted because her mom did drugs while she was pregnant with her. Ugh. And now she's born with have a heart because of that decision. Decisions have consequences, people. Decisions have consequences. And anyways, I mean, that just makes me mad. If anything makes me mad, it's stuff like that. Because now that girl has to suffer because of the mom's decision. And also the question is, why was her mom on drugs? What happened to her? It always goes on and on, generation to generation. But anyways, she tells me, they adopted this girl because of she has half a heart. She can't play outside in the hot summer. So they wanted to buy this little shed for her little tiny house with an AC in it so she can go outside and play and, give her a good life. Because she's given only 70 years to live, too, by the doctors. And it's also something you should never do is agree that you have certain amount of time to live. I would never do that, but people do that because when we agree with that, then it'll probably happen, right? So why would you do that? Anyways, so that was a situation. So, oh yes, they bought the shed from this crook who went and got it on rent to own with no down payment and then turns around and sells it for who knows how many $1,000. And they got the community to donate money. So the whole community came together and donated money to buy this thing for this little girl for that reason. And by the way, this is another reason to show up with not a nasty attitude and compassion. And now you want to make sure, let me just say this, like check the story. The girl was there. I saw her. I could see that she was a beautiful little girl. But you could see that she's not very healthy. So again, like I said earlier, is people say, "Yeah, I've been in and out of the hospital, and I can't make a payments," and stuff like that. I'm sorry you've been in and out of the hospital. I don't know what's going on. I don't know if it's true or not, but I can still say I'm sorry. But that doesn't change the fact that you have to make payment. That doesn't take your responsibility away. But so I'm just saying, like, don't be too passionate. Sometimes I get compassionate. Sometimes I was too compassionate and just believed every story because you don't know. Then you drive away and you realize, oh wait, they just took advantage of me. That was not true. But this, I believed her. So I talked to the rent-to-own company. They agreed to let them keep the building, and they'll just write it off as a loss. And I left it there. I remember even the wife was on the phone with the husband, and I heard him say, "Well, if it was stolen, then we got to give it back. That's the right thing to do." That meant a lot to me because that told me they're honest people. They're willing to give it back, even though the situation. Then I found out that they had a GoFundMe account that they were trying to raise money for her to crazy story to go to Disney. Crazy story is they had taken her to Disney one time because that was on her bucket list of things they wanted to do. And I guess the father, the dad, or the adopted dad, worked somewhere where they do make dynamite or something. And during security, the something got picked up where because dynamite has the same stuff in it that a bomb might have in it, and so it caused this crazy havoc where they had to do like inspections. I don't know what all it was. It just very weird. He works at a place where it has to do with dynamite, and then that caused a problem going through security at the airport. And through that, somehow their luggage got delivered to a different place, and they ended up in Disney without their luggage. So now they couldn't go in. It's just a big mess. And I just thought that was interesting. So now they wanted to try again. And so I found that they had a GoFundMe account. So I uploaded the video on YouTube. I put the GoFundMe on there, told the story, and we raised over $28,000 for them to then go to Disney. And I know that they did. I make got some contact with them still. I don't know why I don't check up on this, but they did take her to Disney. Did a great time, and I mean they had a lot of doctor visits and all that stuff. So I'm sure whatever money they didn't spend, they could use it on other stuff for her. So that was just an interesting story I thought I would share. I can't think of the other story I was going to share, but the other thing that I just want to go back on a little bit on my list here. Don't show fear. Never show fear. Animals, dogs can smell fear. They can see if you're afraid. If a dog comes after you and they can tell you're afraid, they're going to come after you. People are a little bit like that too. So you want to be confident and show that you're not afraid. There's been times, like I said, that I would I was kinda scared, and it's hard to work when you're having to move stuff around and clean off around the building so you can get to it, but yet you have to keep watching your back, but you're always watching your back. I remember one time I was taking a bunch of stuff out of this thing. So I'm coming out of the shed is right here, the house is over there, and it's a little ways away from the house. Whenever I would grab a box, every time I would come out of the doors of that shed, I would be looking over at that house to see if there's somebody coming towards me with an AR-15 because you just don't know. So you just be aware. Don't be ignorant. Be aware. Be smart. Be vigilant. Don't show fear. Be courageous, but don't be stupid. Okay? Don't be ignorant. Don't think that it can't happen. Don't think nobody can do something. Okay? Same with dogs. I remember this one time I showed up, knocked on the door, and it was like I went up on the porch, knocked on the door, and then went back down. And then this young girl comes out. And when she opened the door, this pit bull comes flying out, barking, coming right at me. And I'm at the place where I'm convinced if I run, and he's probably doing part of his job is to protect the girl. If I run, he's probably gonna eat me for dinner. So I'm just gonna stand my ground. And so I just kind of ignored him and just say hello. And he kind of like came out towards me and then he turned. And again, I'm still convinced that he was testing me. He's like, "I'm coming for you." And then he seen that I didn't budge, that I didn't run, and so he turned. And those are situations like that that again, people might be the same thing. They come out to scare you. They want to be all scary, but if you show no fear, they'll probably turn. They'll probably bluff. So never show fear. Um, I think that about covers it. I'm sure I'll think of other things later on that I should have talked about, but repo is it's a fun thing to do. Yet at the same time, it's not fun to take people's stuff. I enjoy the using the mule and dragging buildings around. Doing deliveries is fun too, but then you have to block them up, get them level, try to please the customer. That's one thing I like about repo more. It's like going in and just grab it and go. So it is fun, but I would say, it's not like being a cop, but it's a little bit of comparison. So I'd say if you're a jerk and you have a nasty attitude and you have evil intentions towards people, you shouldn't be a cop. You also shouldn't be doing repos. You just shouldn't. You should get out of it. You shouldn't do it. But if you're willing to be nice and you can control your temper, I guess that is something. There's just something else that came to mind yet. Two things. You should be able to control your temper. This is another thing that people do. They might not even know what they're doing, but they do it to try to make you mad. Because when you get angry, when you get mad, your intelligence level drops. Okay? Anger goes up, intelligence goes down. So you're more likely to make a dumb decision. So don't play into their game and get angry because your intelligence just dropped. And now probably everybody loses. Not a good plan. Okay. I think of one that there's a video where we went out as a bunch of us shithole went after this one because some of y'all you've probably seen the video, but there's one guy that was out repoing and somebody knocked him out, left him laying there. And so we decided that we're not going to put up with this as a shitholing group. And I think it was like 15, 16, or 18 of us guys showed up to repo the shit. And the funny story is there's a guy there that owns the buildings and then he rents it out to other people. He ends up showing up. No, he was there. He ends up being there. And then he goes and gets cash and he pays his cash for everything he owes. Like he pays him off so that we don't ever have to go back. And he's kind of a big, kind of aggressive guy. He kind of he got pretty angry with us, but in the end, once he paid us, we're all out on the road there and stuff, and he's like, "Ah, who wants to fight? Who's the tough guy? Who wants to fight?" And so the funny thing is, I look at the comments and people like when he said that, we're all like, "All right, we're out of here," and so we just kind of scattered. We all got in our vehicle and we drove out of there. And people in the comments are like, "You're a bunch of, whatever, you're using these bad words, and you just scatter. You guys just showed you guys, and you're a bunch of scared little blah blah and stuff." I'm like, no, I call that wisdom. That we're there to either get the building or get paid, and we got paid. There's no way he could have won a fight with 18 of us guys. He knew that. He's just trying to show the people he's like the leader of the gangs. He's just trying to show them that he's a tough guy. So, okay, let's say we would say, "Oh, yeah, we're not gonna let you chase us like this." And we start a fight with him, and we, beat him to the ground. And then what happens? Somebody calls the cops. Then the cops show up. Maybe one or two of us gets arrested. What's going on? Then we got to deal with all that. What are you doing? Going through the questioning and all that stuff. And it's a small town where most likely, from what we've discovered, the cops know him and they know not to mess with him. So they would have probably picked his side. I don't know. I'm not saying, but just thinking they're probably dirty cops there. That would have been stupid. So walking away from a fight doesn't mean you're weak. It doesn't mean that you're a loser. It means you're smart enough to walk away. People who do karate and martial arts know that. You don't do martial arts and become a deadly weapon as a human so you can go hurt people. You do it just for if you need it. There's a time to walk away. So it's just, I'm sorry, I don't know why I have to bring this up. Just those attitudes just so disgust me. And people have these attitudes like, "I'm gonna kick your ass." Why? I don't need that. So that brings me to the next thing. The other thing you need to do as a repo person is you have to know who you are. You have to know your identity because people will destroy you emotionally. Some people can't handle it because they get destroyed emotionally. They will call you all kinds of names. And again, part of this is to make you angry, to get you to losing your grip. So you can't drive away from there thinking you're a loser, thinking you are what they. I mean, you're a piece of crap. This old lady just, I mean, she yelled at me, called me every name under the sun, and rah, just went after me. You have to be able to drive away from that, and if you need to, speak over yourself. No, I'm not that. No, I don't believe that. I reject that. Now, like I said before, I'm a Christian, so my identity is in Christ. I'm a born again believer. I'm no longer in the flesh. I'm of the kingdom of God. That's who I am. So I can stand on it. I don't care what you say and who you accuse me of being and what you tell me that I am. I know I ain't. And if you're not that, then you can still, if you are a good person, then you can say, no, that's not true. I'm a good person. If you're a jerk, then, well, you're just a jerk. And you should become not a jerk. You should become a nice person, right? But you have to be willing to grow as a person if you're not there yet and learn who you are, get your identity straight, and be strong in your emotions. Be willing to take words spoken against you, be able to handle people trying to destroy you emotionally and not let it get to you. So, in the best advice I can give for that to me is to know who you are and stick with that and just brush it off. Don't let it bottle up. Go see a counselor if you need to. Don't let it bottle up and then one day it's going to blow up. But just know who you are and don't let it bother you. Don't let it bother you. Drive away from there. Have a meeting with yourself. This is who I am. This is me. And don't get mad at them for doing that. That's just them. That's their okay. Here, the other thing is when I realized this changed my life. When somebody does something to me, I mean, this is as simple as somebody cutting me off on the road. If I get mad, I just allow them to control my emotions. Now, I've let that happen a few times, many times, and it still happens sometimes if I don't watch myself. So you got to stand your guard. But I don't like to be controlled, physically or emotionally. So when I realized, wait a minute, they just controlled my attitude. I was having a good day until they did whatever they did, and now I'm mad. They just controlled my attitude. I just gave them full control of my attitude, and I don't like that. So I'm not going to allow that to happen anymore. So next time somebody does something I don't like, I'm just going to ignore it and say, I'm going to continue to have a nice day, even though they did what they did. This is my life, and I'm not going to give somebody control over how I feel. Man alive. Snowflakes, listen up. You can learn from that. I'm not giving somebody. I don't care what Trump says, or I don't care what Biden says. I don't care what the news says. I don't care what these people say that I don't agree with. Oh my God, I got so offended. No, I'm not giving people that control over my life. I'm not gonna get offended by that. I'm not doing it. So I think that about sums it up. Number one, go over my list again. Make sure you understand how rent tone works. Kind of figure out what you should say when you show up. What you could say. Keep it calm. Keep it nice. Don't become too friendly. I've had that happen where I become too friendly with the people and talk too much. Where almost like we become friends. And then when it comes down to the rent don't come, it says, okay, yeah, go ahead and take it. And then it's hard to come out of that. And because again, you don't have to get mad, but just sometimes you have to say, well, I'm taking it. And I've become friends with this guy almost from talking about different stuff while his wife was on the phone with the rent-don't company. And I couldn't get myself to switch to, I'm here to repo the shed. That's what I got to do. So be careful not to become friendly with them. If they want to, oh, yeah, beautiful day. How's the weather? Yeah, so how's your wife and kids? No, let's not go in that conversation. because I'm here to do my job. Okay. Um, your attitude, be nice, be confident. Don't ever show fear. I don't care how scared you are. Don't be dumb. Be wise. Pay attention, but don't show fear. Um, those are just some of the things I got. And with that being said, have fun, be careful, and have a good day. Bye now.